friends. Welcome to the LeggLife podcast. My name is Adam.
My name is Sherry.
Sherry Beth, what episode is this?
103.
And not only is it episode 103, it is episode 3 in our current Advent series.
Correct.
So if you've been listening the last few weeks, we decided during the month of December to sort of deep dive, into the Advent themes of hope, peace, joy, and love.
Yes.
First 2 weeks we did, of course, hope and peace. And today is all about the topic of joy. And I do just want to say this one more time. We said this when we started this series. This is for everybody, not just people who observe Advent, not just people who are Christians. The topics of hope, peace, joy, and love are universal.
Yes.
They're ones that if all of us that are a part of humanity on planet Earth in 2023, almost 2024, if we all focused more on those, I think the world would be a better place.
Yes, I believe so.
Now, we're going to be a little bit honest from the beginning of this podcast as we start talking about joy. We had a great conversation earlier tonight about how freaking hard these topics are.
Yeah, I think that they're all hard, but I think for me, joy is maybe the hardest.
And the reason they're difficult is that I wish it was just like, oh, hope, peace, joy, and love. Those are simple. Like, got it, easy, good to go. But so much of our world and our culture fights against those things.
Yes.
Like, the conflict of the world fights against any sense of peace. The
hopelessness and conflict and unhappiness and discontent and,
a never-ending barrage,
right.
against these things. And so we were talking about just how difficult these can be. And partly because these themes of Advent, from a Christian standpoint, and I'm trying to let you guys know how we view these, is not just the topic of hope. It's not just, finding hope in a good job or finding hope in a bank account. We find hope in things that are outside of what is dying in this world.
It's outside of this world, outside of this realm.
That's right. And so the themes kind of, yes, there are different types of hope. There's different types of peace, or different types of love and joy. But specifically for Advent, these are things that exist eternally.
Right.
These are things that exist because God exists, right? It's hope in the fact that there is more than just this life. It's hope in the fact that there is more than just the things that are wasting away here.
Yeah.
It is peace because we believe in a God who exists outside of the conflict of this world.
Right.
And so it's that kind of a perspective. But why it's so hard is that we all live in this world.
Right.
We are surrounded by temporal and temporary and conflict and all those things that we just talked about. And so
we are finite beings who don't really have a concept of eternal things.
And so in some ways, Advent is finite beings trying to grasp infinite themes of hope, joy, peace, and love. We're trying to find a foundation of those things that is beyond just the finite and dying world we live in.
Right.
Not easy.
Not easy.
So now let's talk about the super simple one, joy.
I think, like I said, I think for me, joy is probably the hardest one. And part of that is I, as a person, am naturally fairly cynical. And it's not something I like about myself. It's something I fight against, but it is kind of who I am. And and I think part of that is because I'm an INFJ, which makes me very logical as well as creative. But that logic side of me wants to try to figure things out, and it's hard.
Yeah, well, because...
and I see all the different sides. I'm also an Enneagram.
That's what I was going to say. You...
5, so Go ahead.
I was going to say, you weigh the evidence.
Right, and I see all the different things. I everything has to be in balance. I see both sides, and it's hard for me to find joy. Because the kind of infinite joy that we're talking about.
That's right, because when you look, the evidence suggests that there's not a ton to be joyful in.
Right.
Right, and remember, it's like, so I always think, a friend of mine, Dan, when he used to talk about joy, he used to talk about the difference between joy and happiness. Because a lot of us get those confused. Like, oh, happiness, joy is just like, I don't know, like, joy is happiness on steroids. Not really. And the way my friend Dan used to describe it, I just love this definition, is happiness is the illusion that all is right in the world. Happiness is situational.
Circumstantial.
Happiness is circumstantial.
Yep.
We are happy when good things happen. We are happy when happy things happen. But when those things stop happening, happiness goes away.
Right.
And so in some ways, you can kind of maybe misunderstand this and to be like, well, then I just need to focus on the things that are happy. That's not what this is talking about. Joy is, if you remember when we talked about peace, we said peace isn't the absence of conflict. True peace can exist even in the presence of conflict.
Right.
Joy isn't just happiness when things are going right. True joy can exist even when everything is going wrong.
Right.
It is not situation, and that's what you struggle with.
That's what I struggle with, and I don't know why joy specifically, because I feel like I can find hope in like beyond this realm. I can find peace beyond this realm. I can find love beyond this realm, but joy, I think, is harder for me to grasp. I think the concept of beyond this realm.
First of all, I love that you are just so honest about this stuff, because I think a lot of people struggle with one of these Advent themes more than another, right? It's almost like there's one leg of this four-legged stool that's kind of weaker for most of us.
And this is mine.
And this is yours. And I think that's very self-aware to know that, but I have the answer for you.
Do you?
I do. It's super simple. See, you were raised in the church, right? Like you were raised in like Christian youth groups and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that you just need to remind yourself that you have the joy, joy down in your heart.
I hate you. We're
Where?
shutting down the podcast.
Down in your heart.
Bye, kids.
Where? No, but I mean, here's the thing. I think that sometimes, especially in Christian settings or the church, we can look over and gloss over the fact that some of the stuff is really hard.
Yeah.
And joy is more than just like singing a song.
Yeah, and I can have every, choose joy sign in my house, and it doesn't mean I'm choosing joy. It just, it's hard for me. Like, it's hard to grasp that concept.
So how do you, knowing that about yourself, what are things that you do to try to choose joy? To try to, because I think that all of these are things that we have to practice.
Yes.
In the middle of a world that can feel hopeless, I have to practice and choose hope.
Right.
Right? I have to intentionally make that choice. And I have to like work the hope muscle. And the same is true with peace and all of these. Mm-hmm. So what does it look like for you to practice joy?
I think because I am so like analytical and logical and balancing, for me, it's finding the silver lining in things, and I realize that is temporary, and circumstantial. But I think that for me, like even just being able to find those things lets my otherworldly part know that there's more out there.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, because I think that what you look for is little things, like things here on earth can be reminders of things that are lasting.
Right, like we're infinite souls encased in a finite body, and so like my finite body has a harder time grasping that infinite, but it's there. And so if I can find the finite things, it's easier for me to wrap my head around the infinite things.
Well, I think for me, it's easy to just be like, oh, you just find your joy in Jesus. Like, well,
what does that mean?
What does that mean?
Look like?
And it's like sometimes,
I mean, realistically, that's really hard.
And I think for me, I do think it's helpful to look at finite things. So what would be unhealthy is for me to find the source of my joy in Sherry.
Right.
Because the reality is that Sherry will let me down.
Mm-hmm.
Sherry will, and I will for her too. That's what we all do.
Because we are human beings.
100%. However,
Flawed.
Sherry is the best reminder in my life about like the goodness of God, because I believe that he brought us together.
That's cute.
And okay, well, stop keeping your pants leg. We're talking about Advent. But it's like, that's true. So I
Yeah.
can look at a finite thing and it can be a reminder of something that is infinite. Like, you are a reminder of the goodness of God in my life. And I can say that and not be like, oh, you're not where I find my joy. While I find lots of joy in our relationship, it's super unhealthy to try to find infinite things in finite.
Right.
People will let you down.
People let you down. Circumstances will let you down.
And I think that's the difference between happiness. Like, happiness is looking at the temporary, and like, it's kind of that ebb and flow, right? It's like, happy, I'm sad, things are good today, I'm happy, things are bad tomorrow, I'm sad. There's kind of constant ebb and flow of happy and sad.
Right. I think happy is finding gladness in circumstances and things that are surrounding you.
Yeah, it's the illusion that all is right in the world.
Right.
Right? I'm happy when I've convinced myself that, oh, things are right. No, they're not. They're all dying.
Things are a shit show.
Completely.
Right.
Yeah. So for you as a natural cynic, the joy being the thing that you really battle the hardest against,
Yeah.
practically, what does that, like, what are some things that you've done that have helped?
I don't know. I think, like I said, like, just kind of finding the silver lining in things, because then I think I can get a glimpse of what is really out there, like, beyond this realm. And so I think, like, I don't know, like...
I think you kind of just answered it, and I actually reworded the question weirdly, because it was exactly what I asked earlier.
Yeah.
How often, like, when do you know that you need to do that? I think is more what I was looking at. Like, when do you know that it's like, oh crap, like, I am joyless, or like what does that look like?
I don't know that I don't know. I don't think that I let myself sink into my cynicism so much that I'm joyless. Ever. I think that, again, with that weights and balances thing, like, I know that I have an infinite soul, and so I can always sort of find those infinite things, but it's just the balance between the finite and the infinite. But I think probably, like, I can go through phases where I do kind of sink into myself. I retreat into myself. And I think that is, for me, dangerous, because I have a very dark mind.
Right.
And it's a black hole of dark. And so I think that's when I can feel myself falling, and I can find things that will pull myself out of that. And yeah, I don't know. I think that's kind of in the depths of despair, I guess, is like when I know, like, the sun is coming. I guess.
Yeah.
Like, I can look for that ray of sun through the storm, because I know it's going to be there.
And I think, being honest with yourself, that it's not easy.
No.
And it's not like a kitschy saying that's on, it can be painted on the wall. It's not just like some hymn you can sing. It's not just a Bible verse. It's not just, like, there's no Band-Aid you can put on the whole, like, joy thing. It takes practice.
Right.
You have to, like, for you specifically, you have to fight against your natural instinct and practice and choose joy when that is not what you would normally do.
Right.
And I think I've seen you do that. I know I've seen you do that a lot.
You have.
Well, yeah, because I think, like, I know you pretty well. A little bit.
Probably better than anybody on this planet, yes.
A little bit. And I can tell when you are getting... I think that your darkness can turn to cynicism. And I think that you... Like, I can see when that comes out, but then I can also see you battle because you don't want that to be true about yourself.
I don't like it about myself that I just naturally am cynical, so I do fight it. I don't like it.
Yeah, and I think that... but I think that that's, like, what a great battle to fight.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to fight to choose joy instead of cynicism.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great.
That's good, yeah.
And I think for me, like, I'm very different than you.
Yeah.
I'm a natural optimist. I would say that I am, for the most part, joy is not the one that is difficult for me.
Yeah.
However, and this has probably changed over the years. And I'm thinking right now about how even the job that I have currently has impacted this. Mm-hmm. Because
there's not a lot of joy in your job.
I've had to redefine what joy looks like. Because happiness is situational and circumstantial. And there are just so many, in any given week, so many hard situations and circumstances that it can be difficult to be reminded about the reality of joy. Despair and loss and pain and sadness are kind of what is always in front of me.
Right.
And so I have to return to who I think I naturally am, which is not those things, and return to joy. Like, make the conscious decision to go back to choose that and not let the cynicism and darkness of the world cloud out that optimistic perspective that I normally have.
Yeah.
Now, there's a balance in that, because you can get into like a toxic positivity thing where you just gloss over all of the hardness and pain and everything's just like
sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah, and it's not.
It's not.
Like,
no.
people get bought and sold, and children get like sexually exploited, and like all of these things happen
right.
in the world. And so I think that for me, it is not a toxic positivity view. It is also not a hopeless cynicism view. It is a view that looks at the reality of the world, the hardness, the pain, the loss, the torment, all of that stuff, and still says that joy can exist even in the middle of that.
It's a yes and.
It's a yes and.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that you are ignoring the pain of the world. It's just that joy can exist. And I think that that is the kind of joy that Advent talks about. Even going back to the Christmas story, it is the Christ child stepping into the brokenness of our world and our story.
Right.
I don't know what's going on with my voice. You hear it?
Right.
Holy cow. It is, you know what I mean? It
Yeah.
is light invading our darkness.
Right.
It is hope stepping into our hopelessness. It's joy stepping into the sadness and despair of the world.
Yeah.
That's what it's talking about. It's invading. It is something that is eternal invading our temporal experience.
Yeah.
And I think that for me, what I have to do is I have to return to joy. I have to kind of check myself, and when I feel myself drifting from that, I have to make the conscious decision to go back to that.
Right.
And it's exactly kind of what we talked about earlier. It's very similar for me. I have to remind myself of the things in this life and in this world that bring joy. And those things to me point to things that are lasting, things that are eternal.
Yeah.
Joy.
Joy.
I wish it was easy as just being like, I got the joy. Where? Hell if I know. It's gone.
What do you mean down in your heart? What does that even mean?
My heart is black.
Yeah, my sister's middle name is Joy.
Mm-hmm.
And she has a tattoo that just says Joy. That she got in the midst of a very, very hard time.
Yep.
And kind of as a reminder that there is joy to be found even in really bad circumstances.
That is exactly what it is talking about.
Yeah.
When we talk about joy during Advent.
Yep.
It is not, there was no happiness in that situation.
None. No.
But joy could still be present.
Right.
And I think that that is what we all need to be reminded of in this season. The difference between happiness and joy. I have met people. Have you ever met somebody that is just like so joyful?
Yes.
Isn't there something that is so magnetic and attractive about that?
Alluring. And I think because it's not who I am as a person. Like, yeah. I have a hard time. I'm not like Little Miss Sunshine. I'm just not. And so, like, when people are, I'm just like, tell me your secrets. Like, what is this black magic you have?
Well, because I think that demeanor stands in contrast to so much of what we see in the world. There's something that is attractive about
when people
that.
are genuinely joyful. I think.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, you can tell when people are just putting on a front, but
Ugh.
I think, like, people that are just genuinely joyful people,
Yep.
yeah, there's something very attractive about that.
I totally agree. Sherry, any last joy thoughts from the cynicism of your black heart?
Boy, I do. I have a black mind. No, I don't think so. I think, it is something that I do struggle with, and it's something that I wish I was naturally inclined for. And that's, probably, the grass is always greener kind of thing. Like, I don't really seem to struggle so much with the other three, but I do with joy, and I wish that was the one I didn't struggle with, but
and I think that takes some self-reflection. I think that's one of the things that's can be helpful for all of us to do is map your joy, map your happy. Look and see, are you the kind of person, because this has been eye-opening for me, look and see, is your happiness tied to situations and circumstances?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, oh man, when things go wrong, like my happy is gone instantly. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the ebb and flow of emotion depends on situations.
Right.
It's just, I just don't think it's how we were designed to live.
Right.
I think that we were designed to experience a joy that passes the situations of the world.
The understanding of our finite minds.
I think so.
Yeah. Which one do you struggle with the most?
Of
the four. Hope, peace, joy, and love.
I think the one I struggle with the most is love.
Oh.
And we'll talk about that next week.
I would not have called that.
Yeah, and I'm not going to give away why that is, but we'll talk about that
next week. Okay.
Yeah, that's the one I struggle the most with.
Interesting. All right.
So, all right, friends, we love you.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. Thanks for being with us during this Advent journey. One more week, next week, love.
Yeah.
We'll talk all about why that's a kick in the balls for me. All right, friends, we love you. We'll see you on the next LeggLife podcast. Bye.